Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be pleasing unto you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Have any of you done those DNA tests that tell you kind of who your ancestors are or can match you with people? Have any of you done that? A couple of you. I've done it. Have you ever traced back your family, the ancestry? Have you ever done that? Kind of interesting, isn't it? When Beth, my 23-year-old, was born, and for a couple of years early in her life, I was very, very interested in genealogy, and I made her this. It's a really bad picture because when you ask a 23-year-old to take a picture on her wall, she literally just takes a picture on her wall. But I got this genealogy thing, and then, I did all the research, and then I made this pretty thing, right? And everything isn't filled in because I don't know everything. And my father was adopted. So the genealogy for my father is on his adopted family. We don't know his real family. And some of you may be adopted, or some of you may not know your birth family, or not have a good relationship with your family of origin. But the great thing about this is we can replace this with God and Jesus and the genealogy of everyone sitting here, because we have all been adopted into Christ. Isn't that cool? So as we begin this second week of sowing seeds of faithful stewardship, we're going to look into our heritage. And our heritage here at Farmington United Methodist Church. And our heritage as Christians. Knowing where we came from, our history becomes an important first step in moving forward into the future. Rachel Gray, our stewardship chair, told us last week that our church was the first church in Farmington. That's something to be proud of. Our congregation now is 192 years old. Did you know that? That's awesome. And can you imagine what that 200th anniversary is going to look like? And that's not too far off. Some of our faithful long-term members helped write a history for this church. And that is precious information. And you can find all of it on our website. And I encourage you to go look at that and read those words. I want to hit the highlights today. 1831. Before it was even really a town, 5 couples began meeting in the home of Reverend Josiah and Sarah Trent. And then they built a church. And that church was First Ebenezer. And it was completed in 1833. And then they outgrew that church. And the second Ebenezer church was completed in 1851. And then there was the Civil War. And did you know that in order to furnish lumber for barracks, the Union forces demolished everything? Every building, public business, church in Farmington, demolished them to build barracks. But Second Ebenezer Methodist Church stood standing because of Miss Sultana Trent, who held school in that building. And she held it every day. And she was present. So when those Union troops came, she said, "Not here." Everyone else was lying low, letting these empty buildings get demolished. She wasn't. She was in that church. And it was just after the Civil War that the town was named Farming Town. Fast forward about 25 years after the Civil War, and a new church needed to be built. So in 1890, the Engels family, who actually founded our town, they donated some land. And the new building was on White Street. And it became known as the Farmington Methodist. And it served, there it is, it served as our church home for over 100 years. There's a pew in the narthex that is from that church. Have you noticed it? The stained glass is from that church. I encourage you to notice it sometime. Really notice it. The pendulum clock that hangs in there is from the white church. And the bell that hangs in this church bell tower is from the White Street Church. Wouldn't it be awesome to hear that ring again? For 113 years, the White Street Church was our home. And if you worshiped at the White Street Church, I would love for you to stand or wave your hand so that everyone can see that. There are quite a few of us, not me, but quite a few of you who are still here today. So that new location was made possible. Well, hold on. I totally skipped around. We needed a new church. And this location was made possible because a generous gift was left to the church from the estate of Russell and Clara Boyles. Estate planning matters. There was also a capital campaign and a line of credit from the Methodist Foundation, and this site began construction in 2002. And it was designed for future growth. Did you know that all of these walls here are not load-bearing and can be removed should our congregation need to have a bigger sanctuary? There are all these neat things happening. But before this church was ready, the White Street Church sold in October of 2004, and they required immediate occupancy. So members packed up, moved the pews, the tables, the pulpit, the piano, the hymnals, the Bibles. They moved them all into back of the trailers and set up a temporary church in Brian Weaver's garage. There it is. And the new church was completed in December of 2004. And those first services were on December 12th. Let's see, there you go. That is a picture from the first service here in this sanctuary. If you were here for that service, would you stand or raise your hand? Right? Yeah. Our beliefs and our ministry are meaningfully connected to our personal and our corporate identities. And they're rooted in our shared histories. While some of you were here when we met in the White Church and in Brian Weaver's garage, others have joined and remember the first service here. And others have joined since then. But all of those events, everything that I just shared with you, is history that is shared with all of us as members of Farmington United Methodist Church. Paul wrote the letter to Timothy when Paul was in prison in Rome. And he reminds Timothy to remember from whom you came and who you are and where you are going. And that is a reminder for all of us today. As we look forward to new opportunities, new people, new programming, we mustn't forget to go back and remember that we have been loved from the beginning. And here at Farmington, those first families who started Ebenezer are our ancestors. They've loved us by making a future for our congregation. We are connected. And we must do all that we can in moving forward to not forget that. And to be those same people for those that come after us. Our stewardship is tied up in the past and the present and the future. And we must steward these gifts of relationships, of fellowship, of community that surround us in a way that joins God and Jesus in the mission to bring God's kingdom here. Our ancestor in Methodism, Charles Wesley, who has written many of the words of many of the hymns that we sing, wrote in 1742 these words, which you may recognize. Help us to help each other, Lord, each other's cross to bear. Let all their friendly aid afford and feel each other's care. Help us to build each other up, our meager gifts improve, increase our faith, confirm our hope, and perfect us in love. Understanding where we came from is the first step in helping each other. It is a reminder that through all of the struggles and the brokenness of this world, the brokenness in our own families of origin, there were faithful believers who went before us, making sure that our path was just a little bit easier. And it's our turn now. It is our turn to thank those who went before and to turn to the future, making sure that Farmington United Methodist Church is still here for the next generation and the next and the next. Are you ready to be an ancestor and a mentor in the future story of Farmington? Let's sow our seeds of faithful stewardship together. Amen.